Alright everyone, this is Lesson 12, NES Greatest Hits. Your due now is to write down some facts you remember about the NES, our previous lesson. Feel free to flip back in your book or watch my last video to get some ideas and jot some things down. I look forward to reading your responses when you submit your work. The first game on our NES Greatest Hits list is going to be the game Ice Climber. Okay, Ice Climber is released January 30th, 1985. It's created by Nintendo, and the director is Kenji Miki. The game was programmed by a young Kazuaki Morita. This was his first creation for Nintendo, and he considers Ice Climber a warm-up, meaning he developed this game as a warm-up to teach him, the basic skills that he needs to create a successful game. And then he goes on to become the programmer for Super Mario Brothers, okay? One of the most high-selling games of all time. The synopsis. In Ice Climber, the characters Popo and Nana, collectively known as the Ice Climbers, venture up 32 ice-covered mountains to recover stolen vegetables from the giant condor. The first player controls Popo, who is the boy wearing the blue Eskimo parka, okay, while the second player controls Nana, who's the girl wearing the pink one. The only tool they carry is a wooden mallet, to carve openings in the ice above and to club enemies. Each mountain level consists of 8 layers of colorful ice in a bonus stage. Standard dull ice blocks pose no threat other than easily disposed of barrier and platform, meaning you can whack them with the hammer and break them as you see in the picture here. Square ice blocks with higher detail are indestructible. You see these on the right-hand side here and the left-hand side, indestructible. They force the player to take another path. Finally, many mountains include unbreakable moving platforms resembling clouds. The bonus stage takes place at the peak. Within a 40-second time limit and no enemies, the ice climbers often face trickier jumps and multiple moving platforms. The peak is also the only place to recover stolen vegetables, most notably the eggplants. Okay, a little fun fact, that's why the Ice Climbers logo in Super Smash Bros. Is the eggplant. Enemies encountered on the way up the mountain include the Topi, the Nitpicker, and the White Bear. However, the Topi comes in 2 forms. The blue seal was featured in the Japanese version on the Famicom. However, the short Yeti is in the Western versions. Okay, the reason they changed Topi is because the clubbing of seals with wooden mallets was very frowned upon in the Western world, so they needed to change it up to a Yeti. Topis have the ability to fill in holes in the floor with ice, so if you are breaking the roof above you, they can walk across and repatch it with a new brick. The Nitpicker is a small mountain-dwelling bird that swoops down from icy caves on the level's edge. The Nitpicker is making his return, from Donkey Kong. The final enemy is the bipedal white bear, meaning he walks on 2 feet. This enemy, wearing sunglasses and pink shorts, appears on the screen only when Popo and Nana are taking too long to advance up the mountain. He will pound the ice, and the polar bear will force the screen to move up quickly. Okay. Our next NES greatest hit is Punch-Out!, which came out September 18th, 1987, made by Nintendo, and the director is Genyo Takeda. Because the NES was not as powerful as arcade hardware, Takeda and his crew realized that it would be impossible for the NES to emulate the arcade graphics of the original version of Punch-Out! So instead of making the playable boxer wire-framed or transparent in order to see through your opponent, through your character to see the opponent on the other side, they decided to make the playable boxer short-bodied, so that players can see opponents easily over your smaller boxer. So the founder of Nintendo of America and former president Minoru Arakawa ends up attending a boxing match, which featured future heavyweight champion Mike Tyson. While watching the boxer fight, Arakawa became so astonished with his power and skill that he was inspired to use the athlete's name and likeness in the upcoming port of the Punch-Out! Series to help the game sell more copies. Tyson was rumored to have been paid $50,000 for a 3-year period for his likeness. Gameplay. Punch-Out features a boxer known as Little Mac. He fights his way through the ranks of the World Video Boxing Association after facing a series of colorful fictional opponents in 3 circuits. The goal is to win a final dream fight against a highly skilled boxer. The dream fight is different depending on which version of the game you have. In the gold version, it was Super Macho Man, who was also the final opponent in the arcade version. In the original version released in the West, Mike Tyson's Punch-Out, your dream fight was against Mike Tyson himself. In other versions released after the license to use Mike Tyson had expired, they changed the final boss to Mr. Dream. Little Mac has a heart counter which decreases upon being hit, blocking punches, or throwing punches. When the counter decreases to 0, Little Mac turns pink and he appears exhausted and he is unable to attack, but he can still dodge, duck, and block. A bout can end by KO, knockout, if a fighter is unable to get up within 10 seconds. You can win by technical knockout if a fighter is knocked down 3 times in 1 round, or you can win by decision if the bout lasts 3 full rounds without a clear winner. In order to win by decision, the player must accumulate higher than a certain point total by punching the opponent. Okay, these are all of your enemies encountered in the game. You have Glass Joe, who's a wimp from Paris, France. He is your first fight in the minor circuit. Then you have Von Kaiser, who's an ex-military officer from Berlin, Germany. Next you have Piston Honda, who's an experienced boxer from Japan. He is the champion of the minor circuit, and when his eyebrows go up and down, the player earns a star. Don Flamenco, he's a bullfighter from Spain before becoming a boxer. Don is the first fighter on the major circuit and the first fighter to need a strategy to beat him involving his taunts. Next you have King Hippo, an overweight fighter from Hippo Island, the South Pacific. He can only be hit in the belly, which remains well guarded until his hands go way up in the air. And if knocked down once, he is so large that he will not get up again. Then you have the Great Tiger, who's an Indian boxer that knows how to teleport. He can be quite difficult to defeat, as his moves can be hard to understand. Next is the Bald Bull, who is a fighter from Istanbul, Turkey, and has his own signature move. He will charge at you to knock you down in 1 punch, but it can be prevented with a body blow. He is the champion of the major circuit. Then you have Soda Popinski, a burly Russian who enjoys drinking soda. He has a signature move in which he throws 3 uppercuts in a row. Next you have Mr. Sandman, who is a black American who can throw 3 uppercuts in a row really fast. He only appears in the World Circuit. And last, originally you had Super Macho Man, who is the World Circuit champion and millionaire, who has this signature move up his sleeve. He can use his spin punches to his advantage. So here are your cast of characters. Okay, Mike Tyson featured in the middle here. And funny enough, they kind of make a little Mario as the referee. Our next hit is Metroid, which comes out in 1986. Publisher is Nintendo. The director is Satoru Okada. Set on the planet Zebes, the story follows Samus Aran as she attempts to retrieve the parasitic Metroid organisms that were stolen by space pirates. The space pirates plan to replicate the Metroids by exposing them to beta rays and then use them as biological weapons to destroy Samus and anyone else who opposes them. The game style focuses on exploration and the search for power-ups that are used to reach previously inaccessible areas. Its varied endings for fast completion times made it a very popular game for a new trend called speedrunning. It was lauded for being one of the first video games to feature a female protagonist, though the player must complete the game in under 5 hours for this secret to be revealed, with the game's English language instructions manual even using he to refer to the protagonist. They wanted to keep it a secret that she was a female. They wanted the players to earn that by speedrunning the game. This is why many people did not know that Samus was a female after the first game. Gameplay, your synopsis. Metroid is an action-adventure game in which the player controls Samus Aran in a sprite-rendered two-dimensional landscape. This takes place on the planet Zebes, which is an open-ended world with areas connected by doors and elevators. The players control Samus as she travels through the planet's caverns and hunts space pirates. She begins with a weak power beam as her only weapon, with her only ability being jumping. As the player explores more areas, you collect power-ups, which grant Samus special abilities, enhance her armor, her weapons, and allow her to enter areas that were previously inaccessible. Among the power-ups that are included in the game are the Morph Ball, which allows her to curl into a ball and roll into tunnels. The Bomb, which can only be used while in ball form and can open hidden floor and wall paths. And the Screw Attack, a somersaulting move that destroys enemies in its path. In addition to common enemies, Samus encounters two bosses, Kraid and Ridley, whom she must defeat in order to progress. So here's Kraid, and here's the dragon Ridley. Ordinary enemies typically yield additional energy or ammunition when destroyed, and the player can increase Samus's carrying capacities by finding storage tanks and defeating the bosses. Once Kraid and Ridley have both been defeated, the player can open the path to the final area and confront the Mother Brain, which can be seen below. Okay, so here's the story provided in the game booklet. In the year 20X5, the space pirates attack a Galactic Federation-owned space research vessel and seize samples of Metroid creatures, the parasitic lifeforms discovered on the planet SR-388. Dangerous floating organisms. The Metroids can latch onto any organism and drain its life energy to kill it. The space pirates plan to replicate Metroids by exposing them to beta rays and using them as biological weapons to destroy all living beings that oppose them. While searching for the stolen Metroids, the Galactic Federation locates the space pirates' base of operations on planet Zebes. The Federation assault on the planet, but the pirates resist, forcing the Federation to retreat. As a last resort, they send the lone bounty hunter to penetrate this pirate's base and destroy the Mother Brain, which is the biomechanical lifeform that controls the space pirate's fortress and its defenses. Considered the greatest of all bounty hunters, Samus Aran is chosen for the mission. Samus lands on the surface of Zebes and explores the planet, traveling through the planet's caverns. She comes across Kraid, an ally of the space pirates, and Ridley, the space pirates' commander, and defeats them both. Eventually, Samus finds and destroys the Mother Brain. She then places a time bomb to destroy the lair and must escape before it explodes. Our final NES greatest hit is going to be Kirby's Adventure, okay? We'll learn about all three of the Super Mario Brothers games, okay, in a separate lesson. Go into a lot of detail about those, but our last one for today is Kirby's Adventure. Kirby's Adventure is released March 23rd, 1993. It's made by HAL Laboratories, and the director is Masahiro Sakurai. So, at this point, there had already been a Kirby's game released, Kirby's Dream Land for the Game Boy, and that's in the year 1992. Kirby's Adventure is a 2D side-scrolling platform game. In the game scenario, an evil entity named Nightmare corrupts the Fountain of Dreams. And the Fountain of Dreams is what provides restful sleep to the residents of Dreamland. King Dedede steals the Star Rod that powers the fountain and gives pieces of it to his friends in an effort to stop Nightmare. Kirby, the player character of the single-player game, mistakenly believes that Dedede stole the rod for evil and sets out to reunite the pieces. When Kirby defeats Dedede and returns the rod to the fountain, Nightmare goes into outer space to spread bad dreams throughout the galaxy. But Kirby follows him and uses the Star Rod's power to defeat him. Kirby's Adventure was developed by HAL Laboratory as a Nintendo Entertainment System successor to their Game Boy game, Kirby's Dream Land. HAL Laboratory wanted to expand Kirby's existing repertoire of moves, and Kirby's Dream Land was designed for beginner players. But as a result, the Game Boy version was meant for beginner players, younger kids, people who are not familiar with navigating video games. But when they made this game, for inexperienced players, beginner players, they got backlash from, experienced veteran players. They were looking for a challenge. So with Kirby's Adventure, Sakurai wanted to retain the simple gameplay, but improve it so skilled players would enjoy it. This led to the concept of Kirby's copy abilities, which the team hoped would allow players to experiment and improve the replay value of the game. HAL Laboratory created over 40 copy abilities, after which they selected their favorites to include in the final game. Kirby was also given the ability to run faster and perform a slide attack to increase the game's pace, again, kind of promoting that speed running style of gameplay. Kirby's Adventure is the first game to depict Kirby in color. As you could see here in the original Game Boy version of Kirby, he is black and white. Well, that's because the Game Boy itself could not display color. So Sakurai had always envisioned Kirby as pink, but since the Game Boy had monochrome visuals and they rendered him white, the other staff were shocked when they learned that Kirby was actually pink in the newer game. And remember, we talked about where Kirby gets his name from. Well, that was Nintendo's lawyer who helped them win and defeat Universal Studios in that lawsuit over Donkey Kong and King Kong. So they immortalize him by creating a gaming character named after him. Okay, feel free if you guys want to watch any videos on these NES greatest hits, you could type these into your search bar, look them up on YouTube. Also, they will be listed on my site. Okay, thanks for watching.